Hello everybody. Last week on our digital services call, I had a shortfall on our demo. So I wanted to redo that demo in this video. And if you remember the goal of the demo, we were taking an existing service catalog and then we were trying to create a service portfolio from that catalog. So basically exploiting the taxonomy that was developed with the catalog so that we can develop a service portfolio, at least to get started with. So that's what I'm going to demo to you today. We're going to go through it. I'm going to do a series of demonstrations, and they'll be quick, so I hopefully can get everything done within 10 minutes. First thing, we want to look at that existing catalog, and I want to talk about the structure that we're set up for. It has to be 2 layers deep. It has to contain record producers instead of catalog items. But the script can be adjusted, right? There's flexibility in there. This is just an example to get you started. After that, I'm going to go and we're going to look at a service portfolio. So we're going to basically define that top part of the service portfolio so that we can map that catalog taxonomy into it. Then we're going to look at an app service. In this case, we're going to use ServiceNow is going to be the app service that we're using to provide all of the service offerings that we're going to put in our portfolio. And again, that could be adjusted in the script that I'm going to give you. It's just that's the example that we're using. At the end, after we're going to run the script, after I explain the pieces, we're going to run the script, and I want to show you the different output. Right? So we can look at the results and what it created, and then hopefully that gives you some ideas how you can do some quick things like this to develop a bunch of service portfolios or a bunch of services in your portfolio at one time instead of painstakingly go through one at a time. So the first one we're going to look at is that service catalog. So let's get started with a pretty simple service catalog. For that, I'm going to flip over, and I have a catalog called Legal Operations. In Legal Operations, it's 2 levels deep in terms of catalog layers. The first layer is going to be Legal Matters and Legal Requests, and then underneath Legal Matters and Legal Requests, there are subcategories. Compliance Request, for example, has some items in Compliance Requests. We want to map our portfolio to this and make it join together. We should actually see those connectors. The connectors that we'll see, if I go into our Legal Operations catalog and I look at one of those catalog items, look at subpoena, for example, and where this will map is there's a many-to-many table that we can use for mapping. Now in the case of my script, I'm going to use a many-to-many table, and I'll show you where that is because a lot of people get confused on this step. But if you go into a record producer or a catalog item and you go to Configure, Related Lists, you can look at a many-to-many list, and there's 2 of them, like I said. Now if you're putting this catalog item up there for the purposes of subscription, you're going to want to use one type. And if you just want to use it, like we're going to use it for a general one, we're going to use it for a different one. So available for subscribers is a many-to-many table so that you could map catalog items to service offerings. There's also another one, not like this one, available for subscribers. There's also another many-to-many table called not available for subscribers. So we should see that one in here as well. Now what I'm going to use, as I said today, we're not going to be using a subscription model for these services. So I'm going to use the many-to-many table called not available for subscribers. At the end, what we should be able to do is circle back around to all these different record producers that are in my legal catalog, and I should see a reference in not available for subscribers. I should see a reference to the service offering that my script created. So that's a high-level introduction to our catalog, and like I said, we'll circle back around to this tab at the end of after we run the script. The next thing we want to do is, if we go back to our script that we're running, is we want to create the top part of a service portfolio. Go over ahead and do that now. We're going to go back to our page and we're going and define a service portfolio. So I can go underneath CSDM, or I can just go search for it by typing it into my navigator. And we should be able to see a business service portfolio underneath CSDM. Underneath here, if I go new, putting my legal catalog in here, but let's say this is going to be my enterprise eventually, and legal is just going to be one catalog that I put in there, or one set of services. So what I can do is I can just call this enterprise catalog. Enterprise demo, I'll call it. When I save this, what I need is I need to do an owner. So I'll just put myself as an owner in here, and also the portfolio manager. I'll just put myself in there for those right now. The other thing I'm going to need to do is, after I go ahead and save this, is I'm going to need to develop my layer where I'm going to park these top level categories or taxonomies that I'm building. If I go ahead and define a new taxonomy node, and I'm just going to make believe I'm doing a node right now, this is what my script is going to build this node for me. What I want to do though is define my taxonomy layer. So I go ahead and click on this, you'll see I don't have any layers in this catalog right now. Say I want to define a new layer, and this is where we're going to park our top level categories. I'm just going to call this my service layer. This is going to be 100. We're only going to have one layer in our service taxonomy, so that'll make it nice and easier. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in the enterprise demo. Right now I have an enterprise demo portfolio, and I have that taxonomy layer that's in there that I'm able to use, called the service layer. Now what I need to do is a couple things on here. Is I'm going to need to capture our service portfolio ID. The service portfolio called enterprise demo, I'm just going to copy the sys_id. The next part that we're going to go to is, like I said, I'm just going to show you an application service really quick that we're going to attach all this to. And what I'm probably going to do is develop a new one, right? Because what we want to do is we want to connect all of those service offerings back into an app service so that we know that the technology stack that's being provided or being used to provide those service offerings. And what I'm going to do today is we're going to switch over to our environment again, and I am going to, just like I did for the service portfolio, I'm going to define an application service. Okay, so the application services would be underneath here, and I could, let's go ahead and create a new one of these. I'm just going to call this one, I'll just call it Service Now for Enterprise. It's going to ask me to populate the service, but I'm not really going to do that right now. So I'm going to choose a method in here where I'm going to do dynamic CI groups. Or if I have discovery, I can put discovery in there for later. And then that should be able to create our service for us, our application service. So now I have the application service defined, and I also have the service portfolio defined, and that's all I need to do the last step, which is to run my script. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and take a look at a script that will actually do this building of the portfolio. I'm going to explain the script a little bit so that you understand the steps and what you'd have to modify to use it for your use case. And then we'll also take a quick look at the results so that you can understand what we actually built from it. Going back, as I did in the beginning, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put these in here. So that was my ID from my service portal. And then I also need my ID. So if I go to advanced on my application service, I'm also going to need to get my ID from my application service. So you can copy that sys_id. So now I have these two sys_IDs that I'm going to use. I'm just going to hide them in the browser for now. And the next thing we're going to want to do is go into our Fixit script. Right, so the Fixit scripts are where you can define general scripts that you run against your ServiceNow instance. And what I'm going to do for ours is use this demo 1, services for catalog. And in this script, the first thing it's going to do in the beginning is it's going to ask me, first I am creating this in global, so it'll create all of these services in the global scope. And what it needs here first is that service portfolio sys_id. So that was the first sys_id that I put out on my browser tab here. And so that's the service portfolio one. So you're going to want to make sure you have that service portfolio defined so that I can map the new services from my catalog in there. I also want the service catalog identifier, which we'll go in a minute, but also the app service ID. So the app service ID, if I come back here, copy that, put that app service ID in there. If I go back to the catalog that we looked at earlier, the legal operations catalog, that's the final sysid that I need. So I'll copy that sysid, and then we have all that we need to run our script. Now, I'm going to give you a quick tour of the script before. Let me save this, and then I'll give you a quick tour of what the script does. And what the script is going to do is going to take the ID from our service portfolio, and it's going to get that taxonomy layer that we defined. This is the taxonomy layer that it's going to put the new layers in so that we can use that. Now what we're going to see here is also it's going to get the SC categories. So this is the top level categories. So what it's doing here is it's looking where the parent is null so that it knows it's a top level category in the catalog versus a secondary catalog that has a parent. And then it's going to go through those top categories, and what it's going to also do with the taxonomy layer, it's going to create those categories. It's going to create equivalent taxonomies in that new taxonomy layer. Right? So it's going to add that in as it goes through those different layers. Right? Now, what it's going to do here is going to get the second layer of the catalog, and it's going to create a business service for these. So this is actually creating a service for each of those second layers. And then the third layer, which is basically a catalog item in our catalog, that is going to map to the actual record producers themselves. And then what you'll see down here is we're also creating a dependency. So this is where we're mapping together the offering and we're mapping the offering to the catalog item. Right, so the script goes ahead and it does a bunch of things in here. Besides just creating the service and creating the offerings, it's going to also map the dependencies between them. Right? So if you remember in the common service data model, there's a dependency between the service offering and the app service. There's also a dependency between the service offering and the business service. Right? So all of those are being built by this script. If I go ahead and run the script, there'll be some feedback that it gives you in the script to tell you which items it's actually mapping. And then we'll go ahead and take a look at the actual results that come from this. Now, because there's other things running on this instance, you'll have some items mixed in, but you could see here that it is actually going through and creating something for privacy assessment and privacy requests. So you'll get this feedback inside the script. Now the first layer is shorter, and then the second layer I added more lines in my debug statements, just so we can see what are our top layer categories and what are our secondary level categories. All right, so this is the second group of things that it built. If I go ahead and let's take a look at the results of what happened. So let's go back to our catalog first. And if I go ahead and pull up one of the items in my catalog, like subpoena was the one we pulled up earlier, I should now see that subpoena has a not available for subscribers. It has a related service offering. Now if I pull up the subpoena service offering, I should see that this service offering for subpoena, it has a, actually let me go into the dependent item, which is the actual service. This service should map to its parent business service because it's a service offering, so now it should have a parent business service on it. So if we go into these at the offering level, now in my service workspace view, I can go ahead and see that I have the related items down here. If I bring up my dependency map, we should now see the results of the script that we just ran. So what this will let us do is if we go to a certain level in the script, so right now I'm looking at one of these service offerings for subpoena, you can see that it's attached to my summon business service, and it's also attached, which is one of the top level business services, and it's also attached to my application service called ServiceNow for Enterprise. Now if I click on this and I actually do the map from here, I should be able to see everything that our script built out, all parts of the common service data model. So if I click on view map, now you can see that this application service has all these service offerings, and there were 6 of them in there. So we can see all 6 of those offerings. If I want to go up a level, I should see all the parent services for these as well. So if I go up let's go up 3. So now I should see all the parents for all those different offerings. Before we conclude, I wanted to show you one more thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and develop a business application. So I'm going to put an entry into our business application table. And when I go and put that entry into the business application, I'm going to call this ServiceNow Legal. And what this is going to be, the application type, it's going to be a COTS application. And then the architecture type is going to be a platform application. And when I say platform application, what it wants is a platform host. Now our platform host is ServiceNow. And so this is going to be my ServiceNow Legal application. And what I can do from here is I can go ahead and define the different dependencies that I have on here as well. Okay, so I'll pick a category I want for this. So I'll say this is going to be, I don't have a legal category on here. So what I'll just do now is I'll put this in the finance category just so we don't have to define one of those. And then the last thing we have to do is define an owner here. I'll define myself as the owner, and I'll go ahead and save this business application. Now if we wanted to, we can go up a step higher on this business application too. I do want to create this relationship. So the relationship from my business application, which is ServiceNow Legal, but we want a contains relationship. And if you remember right from the common service data model, ServiceNow Legal is the parent in the contains relationship. So if I go back and I look up an application service, I should be able to find all of my application services. And then now what we're doing is we're looking for the one that so I can put an and here. I'm looking for where the name is, or I'll say contains ServiceNow. And we're looking for, if you remember right, we defined our ServiceNow Legal application. So we want to look for all the ones where ServiceNow and run that filter. I did put a few pieces in here just to show you the final outcome, but basically the parts the script built is all the business services on top here that it copied from the catalog and all the service offerings. And then we defined our business application called our ServiceNow Legal, and I also mapped the capability of legal services to that. And if you remember, that's a provides and provided by relationship, where the business capability is the parent and it's provided by that child business application. That's it for our demo. Hopefully this made sense and you could see where you can use opportunities like this to build out a lot of services very quickly, and I hope you find it useful. Thank you.